everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. In today's video I'm showing you guys how I created these ombre and glitter fade nails. I'm working on my Glamerliz practice hand. I've already got the tips and clear base applied, so we're ready to go straight in with the design work. So this first colour I actually mixed myself using Lilac Lustre, Snow White and Bright Violet from CJP. Now the first two colours are regular acrylic powders, but the Bright Violet is a design powder and these are a lot more pigmented and the powders themselves are a lot finer, so it didn't mix together too well, and when I was applying it to the nail there you could see it was marbling. So I just worked around this by working with wetter beads and just painting it on so I could really blend and mix the colours together, and it worked out okay in the end. At the final result you couldn't see any marbling and it ended up quite a beautiful colour, I thought. So what I'm doing on this now is just applying the colour to the entire tip area, making sure it's blended back slightly just because I will be fading some glitter over the top. So how are you all keeping? I really hope you're all doing well. I have to imagine that most people are in lockdown unless you have to still go to work. But yeah, how are you all finding it? What are you doing to combat the boredom? I feel like the boredom's setting in a little bit more in our house now, and we're all trying to actively find things to do to keep ourselves busy. But we just downloaded Disney Plus, I think it's called. And yes, we've been binge watching a load of Disney, which is nice. So now moving on to the little finger, I'm going to do exactly the same as what I did on the pointer finger. So I'm painting on my colour and blending out the back of the bead, and I'm just going to do this until the entire tip of the nail is covered. If this was a regular coloured powder, I would have obviously been able to do this in a lot less beads, but just to combat that marbling issue, I found it easier to paint it on. But if you was using one of your own colours, obviously you could place that down, blend out the back of the bead and drag it down to the free edge, usually in 1-2 beads, depending on obviously how you work and your personal preference and stuff like that. Then I'm going to leave the 2 purple tips to set because I always find it easier to finish off my fades once the first colour has completely dried. So I'm going to move on to the middle nails and do the baby boomers. Now when I do my ombres or baby boomers, I kind of work differently depending on the mood I'm in. So today I just decided I was going to paint on my white. So I'm applying it quite thin and wet and literally just painting it on, blending out the back of the bead and just making sure that that entire tip area is fully covered. Sometimes I will place a more larger drier bead down and walk it down towards the free edge. It literally just depends on personal preference and how I'm feeling on the day. But as you can see, I've just painted that on and made sure the entire tip area is completely covered and that there's not a harsh line at the back of the bead. Just coming in with any more white where it might be needed and making sure that it's nice and bright and full coverage. And then I'm going to do exactly the same on the ring finger. So same again, I've placed my bead down. As you can see, it's quite wet. I'm blending out the back of that bead and then pulling the rest of it down towards the free edge and just painting and smoothing it out. And then I'll do the same coming in with any more beads of acrylic where it's needed, just to make sure that that's a nice full coverage bright white. And just come in with my wet brush and soften at the back of the bead, as it just makes the ombre a whole lot easier if you haven't got a harsh line to drag your next colour over. And then I left all of these colours to completely set before coming in with my nail bed colour. So on the purple nails, I'm going to be doing glitter fades. So I'm coming in with this beautiful glitter from Charlie's Nail Art. This one is called a Unicorn and it is one of my absolute favourite mixes from them. It's got quite an iridescent lilac background and then these fun diamond and dots and all sorts in it, so it's absolutely beautiful mix. But you can create some different effects with it depending on how much you build it up. So as you can see here, I'm building it up a little bit more at the cuticle area to get more of a full coverage, and then I'm fading it down over that lilac to create the glitter fade. And then just using my wet brush, I'll pick up some more of the chunkier pieces and just tap them on where I want them to be. And I'm picking all my glitters up with a teeny tiny bead of CJP crystal glass and then just dipping straight into that raw glitter, keeping my brush nice and wet so I'm able to move it around without it sticking to my brush. But then when I'm adding these chunkier pieces, I'm not adding any extra acrylic, I'm just using my wet brush to pick them up. And then here you can also see I'm just using my wet brush to neaten everything out and, you know, just soften the fade. So then I'm going to do exactly the same on the little finger. So small bead of acrylic dipped into that glitter mix. I'm tapping it gently around the cuticle area to make sure none would go on what would be the skin. And then I'm starting to pat and pull that down to create the nail bed and fade. Coming in with a little bit more to build up that coverage. And just using my brush to move around any of the chunkier pieces so they're not all lying on top of each other. And then you can start working the glitter down over the colour to create that fade. I always work quite wet when I'm working with glitters, as I just find they'll stick to my brush less and I'm able to move them around a little bit more. It is harder when you're working on a smaller area like the nail bed of the little finger here, because it can very easily look a little bit too much. So I'm just using my brush to make sure it looks quite appealing to the eye. And then once I'm finished with these, I will leave them. These nails will need to be capped at the end, but I'll just let that glitter set. So whilst that's setting, I'm going to move back to my baby boomers. So to finish off my baby boomers, I'm using Fantasy from CJP. I've placed down my bead, blended out the back of it so there isn't a harsh line or ridge for your next bead of acrylic to come over. And then I'm just fading that down over the Snow White. Just nice, long, gentle strokes to drag that colour out. Now, I'm not perfect at baby boomers, but they are something I really enjoy doing. So then I'm going to come in with my cuticle bead and placing that down, using the tip of my brush to push it up towards that cuticle without touching. And then just pulling it out to the sides before pulling it down over that previous bead of colour. And then again, just doing lots of stroking and sweeping with my brush over the nail and the blend, just to make sure it all fades out nicely. And then I just come in with a little bit more acrylic just to build up the colour and coverage where it might be needed. I also like to build up a bit of my structure with my core colour, as I usually only cap from the fade down to the tip. So I happily would build up my structure with my nail bed colour so that my cuticle and apex are all done with that Fantasy. And then I'm going to move on and again do exactly the same on the ring finger. So I've placed my bead down, blended out the back of it, and then I'm pulling it down over the Snow White. Keeping everything as nice and as smooth and as even as possible, as it just creates you less work when it does come to capping and filing and all of that stuff. Now here my phone rang, so it paused the recording, and obviously I had to stop doing the nails for a minute. So then when I come back to it, that first bead of Fantasy had started to set. So I just run over it with my wet brush, just so that when I place my next bead down, I can pull it over a lot easier. It isn't going over a really dry bead of acrylic, if that makes sense. And then I've applied it exactly the same, popped my cuticle bead down and then pulled it over the previous bead of colour. And I then just come in with a little bit more, again building up that strength and that structure and pulling it down, and also making sure that the blend is as flawless as I could get it. As I said, I'm not perfect at them. So now that all the design work is finished, the nails are ready to be encapsulated. Now I did notice that here the middle nail is slightly longer than all of the others, but I did correct this when it comes to filing. So I just run over the nails with my wet brush, as I then find my clear acrylic goes on a lot smoother and easier. And then I'm just going to cap all of the nails in my CJP crystal glass. I've left in capping this nail and one of the baby boomer nails, and I did the others off camera, but I thought I would leave 2 in for you guys, just so you could see how I encapsulate. Basically, it's not something I enjoy. It's probably my least favourite part of nails is capping. I just don't enjoy it for some reason. So I don't usually leave it in my videos, but I try to leave it in here and there. But I'm just making sure that all that glitter and fade is completely capped, so that when it does come to filing, I don't file into any of the glitter. And also I'm making sure that all my strength and structure is built up and everything's nice and even. I try to keep my acrylic application as spot on as I can get it, so that then there is less filing to do. And you'll know when your glitter is all capped because it will go matte and dull looking. Onto the baby boomer, and I'm pretty much just capping from the blend down. So I've placed that bead of clear acrylic down at the blend area, and then I'm pulling it down towards the free edge. This is because I've built up most of my strength and structure in the cuticle and apex area with the fantasy. So I'm just finishing off building up that structure. I don't need to take the clear all the way down to the cuticle area. I'm just sort of looking at the nail from all different angles and applying the clear where it needs to be. Because I'd pretty much just painted on the white, the tip area was the most finished, so that's where I'm focusing on capping, and then obviously the blend because you don't want to file into it. I then went off camera, capped the rest of the nails in clear acrylic, done all my filing, buffing, cleaned away all the dust and all of that jazz, and this is what the nails looked like. So I'm now ready to come in with my water decals on the baby boomer nails. I originally see this design on Pinterest. I think she'd done 4 baby boomers, and then these water decals are similar. So that was where I got the inspiration for this set from. So I've soaked my water decals in some room temperature water for 10 seconds, slid them off the backing paper, and now I'm applying them straight onto the nail. And I'm just using my fingers and my tweezers to get out any creases as best as I could. It was a little tricky with these particular water decals. And then they did just have some little accent line, sort of those little black lines, so I added 2 of those as well just to help finish off the set. I then give the water decals 5-10 minutes to dry, just to make sure all that water had evaporated so that it wouldn't affect my top coat. But as you can see, I'm just faffing around, smoothing them out as much as I can. These were decals I just got from AliExpress, by the way, ages ago, but they're really nice. They come in a pack of a few different flowers and they're all really pretty and perfect for spring. And now the nails are ready to top coat. So I'm going to use my CJP tack free top gloss and give the nails all a nice even coat of this, and then I'll pop them in my LED lamp to cure for 60 seconds. When I am applying the top coat over the water decals, I like to use a slightly thicker layer and just let it flow and run over that decal. However, you could also do 2 layers of top coat. If I'm doing them on myself, that's what I would prefer to do, 2 thin layers. But when I'm just doing them for the purpose of a design on my Glamerliz practice hand, I just do a slightly thicker layer instead of 2 coats. So yeah, and then that, guys, is the end of the design. I was really pleased with how these turned out. I have left a little clip at the end with a picture of the finished result. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, then please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you're not already. Please stay safe, and I shall see you all again in the next video. Lots of love. Bye bye.